at a Mazda in Kitchener picking up the new CX50. No, it's not the Miata, although I'd take that home any day, but no, here it is. Here's the new CX50. Here's a CX50 2024 CX50 GT with a turbo on it. I'll give you more details on the car, but give you my first impressions, but here's the new car. Well, welcome to Midlife. My name is Dave. Today we're off to Pinehurst Lake Conservation Area on a beautiful sunny Friday afternoon in the middle of February. Actually, this has been a very unusual winter this year. We've got no snow on the ground. So we're gonna head down to the conservation area with the dogs. I've got my two Shelties in the back. And today I'm going to do a first impressions review of my brand new 2024 Mazda CX50 GT. It's a new car to the family that we picked up about a week ago, so we've got 375 kilometers on it now. The car, I'll show you the exterior in a little bit, but the car is a Zircon sand metallic. I picked this color because I think it's a nice, unique color, different than any other color I've ever actually owned before. I really like the Soul Red metallic as well, but we have a red Kia Sedona minivan, and I just didn't think two red vehicles would necessarily match too well, so we went with the Zircon sand metallic. It's a beautiful color. Now, I am not an automotive journalist. I don't normally do car reviews, so the reason why I wanted to do a first impressions review is because this is the first new car that we've purchased since 2006, when we actually purchased a Mazda 5 GT. Now, we've owned lots of other vehicles since then. As a matter of fact, we've owned a couple of Hondas, we've owned other Mazdas, we've owned a couple of Nissans, and even a Mercedes B250. And in our current stable, or on our driver currently, we actually have a Kia Sedona minivan. We also have a 2017 Mazda CX GT, which had a lot of influence over our purchasing decision for this vehicle, and we even have a BMW 128i, which is our summer car. Now, we looked at a lot of different vehicles. Actually, when we originally started, we were not planning on purchasing a new vehicle. I looked at a number of 2 or 3-year-old off-lease vehicles, including BMW X1s and BMW X2s. We also test drove a couple of QX50s, also drove the CX5, and even considered the Honda CR-V, the Toyota RAV4, and one that was pretty high on my list actually was the Subaru Outback. I thought that also would have fit quite well with, the types of things we plan on doing with this vehicle. Now, when we were test driving some of those vehicles, we actually stopped in at Keyswater Mazda to look at a CX5, and while we were there, we had a look at the CX50 and took it for a test drive. And when we sat down to have a look at the numbers, because we were looking at a QX50 at the time, along with the CX5, we realized that with the financing rates that you can get from Mazda on a new vehicle, we could basically get into a new CX50 for the same payment as a 3 or 4-year-old CX5 or the QX50. So that had a big impact on our purchasing decision. Now, why did we choose a CX50 rather than some of those other vehicles? Because they were all great vehicles. I enjoyed all of them. I preferred the CX50 over the BMWs because I thought that the fit and finish actually was a little nicer in the Mazda than the BMWs, although the BMWs also drove really well. And we really liked how the QX50 drove. I was just a little leery of the CVT, and as a general rule, that's the reason why we didn't look at any further at the CR-V or the RAV4, because we weren't really interested in getting another CVT. We've owned vehicles with CVTs in the past, and quite frankly, I don't really like the driving dynamics of a CVT, and even though this only has a 6-speed automatic, this definitely drives better than any of the vehicles that had a CVT. As I mentioned earlier, we still have a Mazda 6 GT, so when I was looking for a replacement vehicle for that, I was looking for something that was still fun to drive, still had the same driving dynamics that Mazda 6 GT has, but had the ability to go ahead and haul kayaks and mountain bikes and put the dogs in the back like I have today. So I have my 2 Shelties in the back, and this vehicle certainly fit all of those needs. It does have the ability to go off-road a little bit, so I can go look for new places to drop in my kayaks, but I wasn't really prioritizing off-road capability because I would have gone for the Outback if that was the case. For me, I was more concerned about the driving dynamics, and I really like this vehicle, especially the GT Turbo version, which we purchased, because it's fun to drive. I actually think it's got a great drivetrain. I love the turbo engine. It's got 256 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. So it's a fun drivetrain that I can switch into manual mode when I want to, and yet it still does all of the utilitarian things that we want to do, including hauling kayaks and puppies. And I purchased this vehicle rather than the CX5 because I really like the CX5 as well, because it has a little bit more room in the back for the dogs, and it has a lower roof line. The CX50 has a lower roof line than the CX5, which is important when you're putting 2 kayaks on the roof all the time. So that had a big impact on the decision. I also think the CX50 looks better. And then finally, it actually is a little higher than the CX5, so if I am looking for a place to drop in the kayaks, it gives me a few more options to go and explore trails and dirt roads and things like that. So I just think it was better suited for the purpose. But the CX5 was a great vehicle, and we really liked how that drove as well. Now, one of the things I have done, obviously, when we started shopping for new vehicles, is watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I appreciate all of the other content creators. I won't start naming some of my favorites, but there are a lot of people out there that do amazing videos. When I watched some of the videos on the CX50, one of the comments that came up a few times was the fact that the ride is a little firm. It's certainly firm compared to the Outback, for example. Now, I came out of a Mazda 6 GT, so I don't think it's actually all that firm. As a matter of fact, considering how well this crossover actually handles, I think actually it's got a very nice ride to it. Now, I understand for the 2024 version of the car, they changed the dampening a little on the vehicle, and also the steering ratio, because apparently some people also mentioned that it was a little bit firm also when it comes to steering. For me personally, I think it's a great riding vehicle for what it's actually designed to do. It's also quiet, probably even quieter than my Mazda 6. I don't think it's any harsher than my Mazda 6, and I still appreciate the feedback that you get from the steering wheel. I think it gives you good feedback compared to some of the other vehicles that I drove, like the CR-V, for example, where it doesn't really have a lot of steering response. The Mazda still feels like a Mazda, and for those people who are fans of Mazda like I am, the nice thing about this car is you can hop into this car after driving my Mazda 6 GT and feel like you've driven as a vehicle as part of the Mazda family, and actually hopping from one to the other. My 2017 Mazda 6 is a non-turbo 2.5 liter with 186 horsepower, so you immediately notice the improvement in torque and the horsepower in the turbo version of this car. Again, 256 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. I do have premium fuel in here. It'll drop to 227 horsepower. If you put regular gas in there, I'm not planning on driving with regular fuel, but the cost of fuel continues to go up. I plan on owning this vehicle for a number of years, and I would suspect in the future, when gas gets more expensive, that I may have in fact switch over to regular 87 octane. But for now, I'm going to continue to run it on premium because I do like how the car drives, and I do appreciate that a little bit of extra horsepower. And so my first impressions as far as driving are concerned, drives well, handles well, has plenty of power for what I need it to do. I mean, sub 7 seconds, 0 to 60 times. I don't know how much faster you need an SUV to go, but it certainly makes it more fun to drive than even my Mazda 6, simply because of the extra horsepower. Okay, so we're at Pinehurst Lake Conservation Area. There's 14 kilometers of trails to hike and ski here in the fall and the winter. As you can see, mid-February, and there is no snow for the first time in many, many years, because normally we would cross-country ski here, but we're still going to go and hike at least 2 of the 4 different trails that you can hike here. We normally go hiking for 3 or 4 hours. I've got the dogs here today, so should be fun. And I will catch back up with everybody when I get back and give you a bit of a tour of the vehicle, both inside and outside, and give you some additional feedback on my first impressions of my Mazda CX50 and how it drives. Let's go see how the dogs like the back. There we go. Hey buddy, come on, what'd you get? As you can see, I put all of the liners in to make sure it's all protected for the dogs. So nice add-on, which is the dealer included. But yeah, I went with all the rubber liners throughout the car because the dogs will be here. Well, the dogs are all nice and quiet in the back. We went and hiked about 10 kilometers at Pinehurst Lake Conservation Area, so they're all tuckered out. We'll take it easy on the way home because one of my puppies actually is not quite comfortable yet in the car, but they're really comfortable in the back of the CX50 here. There's lots of space back there, so I'll show you what things look like with 2 dogs in the back. Good hike, beautiful day. Looking forward to the drive home. It's always a nice drive heading back from Pinehurst Lake back to Innerkip. So it's actually a good road for this car. That's one of the reasons why I'm driving this vehicle rather than some of the other vehicles with CVTs, because if you want to drive a little bit more enthusiastically, it's nice to have the 6-speed automatic, and then more importantly being able to shift it into manual mode. If you put this car in manual mode, and I'll do it a little bit on the way home because I do actually like to drive the car in manual, it's much more fun to shift the gears yourself. It's actually got a good gearbox, and again, I drive a 6-speed manual in the summertime, and there aren't many automatics that I would say that are fun. There's nothing as fun as a manual, but there's not an awful lot of cars in the market that are just as fun as driving a 6-speed manual, and this is pretty close. I actually like driving this car in sport mode, and it's a really good replacement for a Mazda 6 GT for sure. All right, we'll switch it into sport mode. I'll have to be a little bit careful because the dogs are in the back. Car's totally different in sport mode though. One of the nice things about the car, once you put it in sport mode without shifting to manual, as you can tell here, it's actually holding the gear up above 3,000 RPM, which is, it's nice when it holds the gear like that. So I shifted it back into sport mode for a little bit there. As you can see, you can shift it if you like to shift it on your own. And the car has a different character when you stick it into manual mode and put it in sport mode. I mean, it's got plenty of get up and go with 320 pound-feet of torque and 256 horsepower. I'm running on premium fuel in this car right now. We'll continue to do so until the price of gas goes up too much. But I love the fact that this car's got some character. It doesn't feel like some of the other SUVs I've driven. Definitely more character than the Outback, and definitely more character than the CR-V or the RAV4. BMW had lots of character as well. I just actually didn't like the interior. But yeah, this car's actually really fun to drive. CX-5, by the way, drives exactly the same way. This is just more practical for my needs. If you drove a CX-5, actually, you'd probably find it drives very similar to this car, especially if you get the turbo on that car as well, and we were looking at that one also. But this one has, I'll show you in the back, this one has more room for the dogs. Yeah, this car's a riot. Actually, you can have a lot of fun in this car. It's a great driving little SUV. It really is. Now there are a couple of things. I'll show you when I do a bit of a tour around the interior. There are a few things I would potentially suggest or improved on based on some of the cars I came out of. But from how it drives, the car's good. It met all of my expectations and exceeded them, and still provides the fun that I really love having when driving. And yet I can haul kayaks on this thing, I can put the dogs in the back, I can put my bike rack on the back. So it will also help me do all those other things I love to do in the summertime, and do it in this vehicle rather than always have to jump in the van. So I'm not going to give it a score because I don't score cars. I'm just basically going to give you my first impressions, and first impressions of the Mazda CX50 GT 2024 are very good. I'll give you more updates on how the car is doing, but for now we'll pick it back up when I actually don't have the dogs in the car, and I'll show you what the inside looks like. So that's our Mazda 6 GT, a 2017 Mazda 6. That's the vehicle that we have just transitioned from, and it's now in storage waiting for our daughter to get home from school. And we've now transitioned to our 2024 Mazda CX50. Well, we have another beautiful afternoon in February in Southern Ontario. So I mentioned yesterday we would give you a quick tour of the outside and the inside of the car and give you some highlights on some of the key features I like about the new vehicle. So why don't we give you a quick tour of my new Mazda CX50 in Zircon Sand Metallic. It's got a nice aggressive low hood line. I do like the contours on the hood line, and also the front grille. The honeycomb grille makes it look really attractive. It has LED front headlights that are also adaptive front headlights, so they will actually turn as you go around a corner. Directly underneath the Mazda logo, you'll see there's a camera there, so that's the front camera on the car. And then down below the license plate, there's actually the radar system for the adaptive cruise control. It does have front vents that actually do work. They are ventilated and actually provide some cooling to the front brakes. And then if you look down below, this is just a plastic decorative piece. It is not a skid plate, and actually if you look down below the car itself, you'd have to do some work to this vehicle if you wanted to truly actually make it an off-roader. This is definitely a soft-roader, and this is about as aggressive as I will get in its current configuration when taking this off-road. As you move around to the back of the vehicle, I like the LED headlights in the back. And they are real exhaust tips. They're not fake on the back, but again, plastic trim to give it some decorative color, but no functional protection underneath the back of this vehicle either. Now, when we open up the rear of the car, there's no kick opening underneath it, but it is a power liftgate. Lots of storage back here. A little bit more storage than the CX5. The other reason why I actually picked this vehicle, because I do think it provides a little bit more storage. And I'll put down below exactly what the figures are as far as the actual amount of storage. But I can actually lie down flat in the back of that car if I wanted to put a small bed back there. Not that I plan on camping back here, but with the amount of storage we've got in this vehicle, many of the times that we would have previously taken our minivan, I can now haul around stuff in this. And more importantly, and the main reason why I got the car, is my two Shelties are very comfortable back here, and they don't even bother to try and get back over the top seats. There's not enough room for them to get through. So even though I did buy a guard to protect them from getting into the middle of the car, the reality is they don't even bother, because the seats do a good job of keeping them back there, and there's lots of storage back here. And then finally, you got your subwoofer and your spare tire are down underneath there, and it is a temporary spare. It's not a permanent spare, but at least it's a spare. All right, so let's have a look on the inside of the CX50. So the rear actually has a little bit more room than if you were looking at the CX5. And I do like the fact that the rear doors open 90 degrees. It'll make it easier to load and unload a child seat if you're putting a little one back there, and make it easier even to get in and out. Now I am 5'8", and if I sit back here, I still have lots of room. And you'll notice that on the rear here, it actually has two USB-A ports. The rear seats are actually heated, and you do have your own rear vents, which is nice. If you go with the lower trim levels, actually, I don't think you get the rear heated seats or the USB ports, but I think that's important, especially if you've got kids. You've got your rear mounting latches here, so if you do need to put car seats in, there are mounting latches on both sides. These just pop out, so you can go ahead and anchor the car seats. Okay, and as I climb in the back here, I actually have plenty of room. I actually have more than enough leg room, as you can see. And I'm 5'8", so for me, this is my normal driving position, and I've got more than enough room for my knees and my feet, so I would be quite comfortable back here. And if you look here above, I have plenty of headroom. So 5'8", I'm fine. I think if you're a little over 6 feet, back here might be a little bit tight, but for me, I'm perfectly comfortable back here. Not that I plan on being here back here very often, but lots of space back here. Okay, let's have a look at the inside of a Mazda CX50. I actually went with the black leather trim with the orange stitching highlights. There is also a tan leather color, almost like a baseball color, that looks really good on this particular paint color. If you actually had a look at the combination of the tan with the Zircon sand metallic, it's actually a nice combination as well, but we actually like the black, but it is black leather, heated and cooled seats. I'll hop in and fire things up. I really like what Mazda's done on the inside of this car. All of the materials that you touch, at least from the front for the most part, are soft touch. You have your locking and unlocking controls on the side here, and you've got your auto up and down power doors and your mirror controls. If you look over down below here, this is where you can actually adjust the view from your camera system, and you can turn off your traction control and all of the other safety features. And then finally down below, you've got your rear hatch release, and it does have 8-way power seats on the front. Both seats are actually power on the front, and you have 2 presets for the driver's seats, so you can go ahead and save your presets if you've got different people driving the vehicle. The steering wheel is nice. It's got I really like the leather on the steering wheel. It's got a very nice leather wrap on it, and then you've got your normal audio feature controls on the left hand side, and then you've got your adaptive cruise control setting on the right hand side, and then you've got some other functional buttons down below, including controlling the front display and your phone, and then finally adjusting your cruise control settings. Now, I will say that the silver buttons on the bottom with the black trim, they're much more visible at night. I actually have a hard time seeing what's actually on the buttons, quite frankly, when I'm driving. Now, thank goodness I've owned a Mazda for a while, so I know what these buttons do, but I can see how that might be a bit of a challenge for somebody, because the buttons actually on the bottom row here are kind of hard to see. Let's go ahead and start the vehicle up. But if you look at the gauge cluster, again, simple gauge cluster, and it is 2 analog dials on the outsides, and then the inside dial actually is a digital dial that can be configured. So you can see here, you can cycle through the different configurations depending on what your preferences are. I actually like to see how I'm doing as far as mileage is concerned, and as you can see by the dash, I'm almost through my first tank of gas in this car, and it looks like I'm probably going to end up with about 570 kilometers off a full tank of gas. I think that tank is 60 liters, and I'm averaging 11.1 liters per 100 kilometers. I think that's probably in about the 27 mile per gallon range, 26 mile per gallon range, but I'll go ahead and look that up and put it down below. A little thirsty at first, but I have been driving the car aggressively. I do hope that as the car breaks in a little bit more, that gas mileage will improve, because it's rated at just under 30 miles per gallon, and combined highway city driving, I should average probably just under 9 liters per 100 kilometers normally. Now, I do live in the country, so I expect that will get lower, and I'm hoping that on average it'll be in the mid 8s once the car's broken in. The other nice thing about the Mazda compared to some of the other vehicles that we actually test drove, all of the buttons are physical buttons. Your volume button is down on the side. Down below we'll cover the infotainment system in a minute, but if you look at the actual ventilation controls, they're all physical buttons, and you do have an auto feature. You've got it's dual climate control, so you do have separate controls for the passenger, and then you can put it on automatic if you prefer to go ahead and let the system decide how you want things to work, and you can certainly set your ventilation up with the physical buttons. It has a 10.2 inch display. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which again is another really nice upgrade from what we had in our previous Mazda. It didn't have Apple CarPlay at all, so I actually really like the fact that it's got Apple CarPlay. The car does come with navigation. Now, people sometimes have mixed reviews on the infotainment system in the Mazda. I came from a Mazda 6, so I'm very comfortable with the infotainment system. It's familiar to me, so I don't have any issues with it. It's easy to navigate. Now, if you get into the basic controls on this car, you have to use the scroll wheel. It's only a touchscreen if you're using Apple CarPlay, but the scroll wheel is designed so that you can actually change things while you're driving. They don't want you reaching forward and touching the display anyway. This does have, as I mentioned, navigation and all of your normal satellite radio and everything else that you'd normally expect. And in this car here, you can also hook up a USB key and play your own music. I actually have a USB drive in the center console. I'll show you in a second. Now, different from my Mazda 6, they've moved the cup holders in above the gear shift now. I guess cups, potentially, if you've got a large coffee, could get in the way. So I think it's actually a better location. You've got some storage for keys up front. You have a 12-volt power source there. I do like the fact that we still have a traditional gear shifter. You can pop it into manual mode if you want to. Once you pop it and drive, you can stick it in manual mode, and you can actually shift through the 6 gears if you'd like to all by itself. I do that actually all the time. I drive a manual in the summertime, so I actually appreciate the manual mode. You have an MI drive selector here. The MI drive selector will actually switch you in between 3 different drive modes. So you've got normal, you've got sport, and as you can see here, it turns red for sport. And then if you cycle down to off-road, it'll turn orange. I haven't used the off-road mode yet, but we'll, as we break the car in, we'll find an opportunity once things start to dry out a bit to take it off-road a little bit. But I will normally drive it in normal mode, and every now and again, just for some fun, I'll put it back into sport. So I actually do use the sport mode quite often, which is probably one of the reasons why I am not getting the best gas mileage. You put it in sport mode, it tends to hold the gear a little longer, although it still shifts quite early, considering where the torque range is on this car. It's still shifting before you even get to 4,000 RPM, so it's not redlining things. You got to put it back into manual mode if you want to get more aggressive. If you look also at the center armrest, it splits. There are 2 sections to the center armrest, and there's enough room here for most of the things I need to store. It's not the largest center armrest, but I can get a small bag in there if necessary. If you had a purse, if you were a young lady, you wanted to put your purse in there, it would fit. If it was a small purse, there's also 2 USB drives down in there. You can see I've connected one of my USB drives because I do have my own music connected as well. And there's another 12-volt power source in the center armrest. And again, it's nicely padded as well in the same material. So overall, I am very happy with the interior of this car. I think it really looks great with this color. The only thing I might add as a kind of a change compared to my Mazda 6 that's a little different than the Mazda 6 I own or the CX5 is the fact that the nice material that you see throughout the car on my Mazda 6 and the CX5 also continues through on the center console, where this is hard plastic. I think that they, are saving a little bit of money here, which is fine. I do think that the interior actually on my Mazda 6 is actually a little nicer than this car, quite frankly. But still a beautiful interior, and I'm fine with sacrificing the padding on the interior of the console here because I've got Apple wireless CarPlay on this car. I actually have wireless charging down below. If you look here, you can see that we actually have a wireless charger, which is great. And then finally, and another really big selling feature of this car, as you've probably noticed throughout the video, it has a panoramic sunroof, and I like how airy this car is with the panoramic sunroof. So beautiful interior, great car to drive. So why don't we go ahead and I will give you my final thoughts as we go ahead and drive home. So there you go, a quick review of my new 2024 Mazda CX50 GT. This vehicle's in Zircon Sand Metallic. I love the color. I think it's a nice, distinct, unique color. I love the exterior styling of this car. It's aggressive. I love the wheel flares and the 20-inch rims. I think the car in its segment is the best looking vehicle in its segment, and I actually think that driving dynamics on this car are also amazing. I think the 20-inch wheel package makes the handling much better. It feels like my Mazda 6. It drives like my Mazda 6. Actually, it drives better than my Mazda 6 because the 2.5 liter turbo, the twin scroll turbo with a 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque actually makes this car a blast to drive. You put it in manual mode and sport mode, and this car has got plenty of get up and go. On the interior, I think it has all the space I need for what I plan on doing with it. There's lots of room for the dogs, lots of room in the back row, and lots of room in the front. I'm very comfortable in the front of the car. It's got 8-way adjustable power adjustable seats front and back with the 2 memory settings, heated and cooled seats. So it's got all of the features that you'd want in this price segment. I actually think that it's got a lot of features that even more expensive cars don't include. I think that the best thing about this car are all the safety features that come with the GT trim, whether it's the adaptive cruise control or the lane keep assist or the lane watching. It's got a great 360 camera system, both front and rear. And I actually like the features like cross-traffic sensors. For example, if somebody's driving and you're backing up, or even somebody's walking down the street with their dog, it lets you know. It's got the cross-traffic warnings on this car as well. So I appreciate all of the different safety features, and I love the adaptive cruise control. And one of the key reasons why I actually went with this trim in this particular vehicle is because of all of the standard things that come in this car. And quite frankly, many much more expensive cars than this don't include all of the standard features that are on the GT trim on the CX50. So first week with the car, I'm very happy with the car. I'll let you know how the fuel economy is, because 11.1 liters per 100 kilometers, it's not quite what I was expecting, at least for its first tank of gas, but I expect that's going to get better as time goes on. And I think with the fact that this is all-wheel drive and it's a 2.5 liter turbo, I wasn't expecting for this to be as fuel efficient as my Mazda 6, but I do expect that the fuel efficiency is going to get a little bit better. But there are lots of great things on this car that I like. So I'm very happy with this car for the first week of ownership, and looking forward to owning this for many years to come. And if you're looking at a Mazda CX50 and you're looking for a recommendation, I highly recommend the vehicle. Take it for a drive and let the vehicle speak for itself. I think it's very competitive in the market, and if you're looking at a compact SUV or crossover, you should add this to the mix and take it out for a drive, because I think you'll be just as impressed with it as I am. I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you'd like to see more videos on the car, please leave a comment. Happy to share more updates on the vehicle. And if you're interested in following along some of my other adventures, don't forget to check out Midlife Explorer. If you want to go and see a video of us kayaking from the location that I actually just came from, when we actually had a look at the exterior of the video, I'll put a link above here so you can go and actually have a look at us paddling down the Nith River when the water was high earlier last summer. But hopefully you liked the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.